Welcome to How Now, the podcast where we talk about how to live in the now. And here's your host, Kim Martin Raymond.
Peace and blessings, love and light, and welcome to this edition of the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. I'm your host, Kim Martin Raymond. I'm a minister, spiritual life coach, holistic nutritionist, author, and founder of Redefining You LLC, where I help my clients to realign themselves, mind, body, and spirit. And this is also home of the 365-day challenge. Welcome in. Today's show is live. It is a special edition of the How Now podcast because in just 2 short shopping days, it will be my 55th birthday. So today, I decided to talk about celebrating my 55 years of life, talking about how I'm living and what I've learned. But before we get into that, please, if this is your first time joining us on the How Now podcast, thanks for joining the show. We're happy to have you here. Okay, make sure that you go to my website, www.hownowpodcast.com. Click on your favorite podcast platform, and then be sure to like, follow, share, and subscribe. You can also scroll to the bottom of the page and click on the banner for this week's show, and it'll take you to the How Now YouTube channel, where you can follow my playlist. I've got plenty. You've got my Tuesday, where I talk about a different scripture verse each week. Okay, you can check out our live stream. I have a live show called Redefining Authenticity with Sharonda Barksdale. Check out that show as well. And you can also check out the 365-day challenge and any of the How Now podcast shows that you may have missed. Okay, so make sure that you tune in. Go to www.hownowpodcast.com. Okay, and as you're going through this evening's show, or as we're going through this evening's show, right down there at the bottom of the screen, the website is scrolling along the bottom, as well as the YouTube channel at How Now Podcast 2391. Okay, so make sure that you like, follow, share, and subscribe. I look forward to having you. Okay, so let's dive in. Okay, one more thing. Look, I'm just like one more thing and one more thing. If you are here, if you are joining me live, please make sure that you hit me up in the chat. Let me know that you're here. Say hi. Ask a question or two if you want. Keep it PG, okay? But dive in and let me know what you'd like to talk about, what you'd like to know about what's going on in my now, okay? So let's get into it. We're talking about 55 years of life. Y'all, it has been a season. It has been a time. And it's important that we talk about how we're living in this now, how we're navigating in this space. Things have been different since the pandemic hit. You know, there are still people reeling from the remnants. It's not over. It's still here. But a lot of people made some monumental pivots in their life when the pandemic hit. And I was one of those people. You know, it was a time when we had to really take a good hard look at ourselves in the mirror. We had to sit with ourselves. We couldn't escape to outside and other distractions. We had to face some of our demons. And it was an important time. It was a pivotal time. And hopefully some of you, like I did, took advantage of this time of self-reflection. Okay. And so, you know, for me, my wellness journey didn't start right away. You know, I was reeling from just the effects of COVID and trying to pivot and see what things I needed to do differently, whether it was in my career, personally, all of those things. And so my wellness journey didn't start right away. There was a little lull first where I just had to catch my breath for a minute and get my bearings and kind of see where I was. You know, my business is called Redefining You. And one of the things that I talk about is, you know, just having that personal navigation system. And mine was spinning out of control. I didn't know where I was. And so in order to get on the path to where you're going, you have to know where you're at. So I had to sit down for a minute, while the world was standing still for a moment. I had to sit down for a moment and say, okay, where am I? And where is it that I want to be at this point? So the biggest thing that or the biggest pivot that I needed to make was with my health. I had gotten to a place where um I was falling asleep at the wheel when I was driving home from work. I just was feeling lethargic. I just was not feeling a sense of overall wellness at all. At all. And so I knew that I needed to do something about that. And a friend of mine happened to reach out. Somebody who I met at a networking event years prior just happened to reach out and said, "Hey, you know, are you having issues with weight, or are you interested in weight loss?" Just out of the blue. But it's amazing. That's how God works. He puts people in your path, especially if that's something that you've prayed for. Put people in my path. Put people, in you know, in my circle, so that way I can tap into them as a resource. And here it was, I hadn't heard from this person in years, and she reached out to me, and that was the beginning of my wellness journey 3 years ago. I had always been a heavy set person. At one point, I was over 300 pounds in my teenage years. And as time went on, I stayed well into 250 pounds for the longest time. Then in 2000, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and I lost 100 pounds then. But the lowest that I had ever gotten to was 218 pounds. And then, in 2009, when my youngest daughter passed away. She had a brain aneurysm and passed in her sleep. So I lost my youngest daughter, and that was a pivotal time for me. And my weight escalated again, and I stayed in the 250 pound, 260 pound range for years. So I had not been under 200 pounds since I was 17 years old. And so for me, this feeling of wellness, this feeling of finally getting to a place where I could have control over my diet and exercise and my weight and my overall wellness became critical to me. And as I got older, it seemed like it was going to be a distant dream for me to get to that place. And so I started working with this young lady. I was taking a product. I won't say the name of the product, but I was using a product, and it helped me to lose, a significant part of that 64 pounds that I eventually lost, and about 40 of those pounds actually. And uh, you know, it's interesting because we set goals for ourselves and we say that we're going to do something, or we're going to try to achieve something, and we go about doing it. And then when it actually happens, we're surprised. Okay. And I think that's what happened. That's what happened to me. I I had tried losing weight in previous years, and everything always failed. And this time I was actually following the program. I was eating properly. I was recording and journaling how I was eating, and drinking my water and doing all the things that I was supposed to do to actually lose the weight. And then I did. And then I was like, uh-oh. One thing that I didn't think about was the fact that, uh-oh, now I've got all these clothes that don't fit. Uh-oh, now I have all these shoes that don't fit. And I'm a trainer. I'm a training manager. I travel the country and I do training. So I'm standing in front of people all the time. And I had to think to myself, okay, now what am I going to wear standing in front of all these people? Because now I've lost the weight. I went from a size 22 to a size 14. The last time I was in the size 14, people, I was in the 8th grade. Okay. So, for me, it was a challenge because here it was. I was the person who didn't have a point of reference. Certain people, when they lose weight, they can say, oh, well, back when I was in high school and I was a fly girl and I was this, that, and the third, they can say, oh, I remember being that weight. I don't ever remember being that weight. This is the first time in my life that I've been under 200 pounds. I've never been this weight in my adult life, so I didn't have a point of reference. So when people were saying, oh, well, what's your goal and where are you going? I didn't have a place to go. I didn't have a point of reference. So that was the challenge. It was like, wait a minute, I don't know where I'm going. I'm not sure where I'm going to be. So that was a challenge. And being a full figured person, and they're talking about body dysmorphia. You talk about people and their thoughts about being positive about larger women and all of those things. I got comfortable with being full figured. I was comfortable with my skin. I was fashionable with my clothing and all those things. And so it was a bit of a challenge, because now it was like, okay, I don't know what my style is because I've never been here. And so now I've got to redefine myself. And I say defined because there's always something within us. There's always that person that's there, and we have to find that person again, especially as a woman. Because what happens is, as we go through life and as we have families and get married and take on career paths and all those things, what happens is we become defined by the roles that we play, and we lose ourselves somewhere in the mix. And when those things change, then we're like, uh-oh, I'm not sure what to do. I think about people, it's graduation season. Some people are having their children graduate and they're going off to college. And they're no longer going to be that soccer mom or that person has to run their child back and forth to practice. Now their child is going off to explore their own uniqueness, their own authenticity. And then we're left standing there like, okay, I don't know what to do with myself. And so that's how redefining you came into place, because we're redefining ourselves. We're finding ourselves and experiencing those things that are still deep within us, things that have been in our heart to do or in our mind to do. And sometimes we lose that in the mix. And so that's something that we have to, circle back around to. And so for me, losing this weight and then having to have surgery on top of that, because now I had a lot of excess skin. I had to have 11 and a half pounds of excess skin removed from my breast and from my body, because it was impeding my ability to, have a quality of life. And so I had to had back-to-back surgeries, 1 year behind the other, in 2022 and 2023. And, I had a lot of healing to do. I was over the age of 50, and so the healing was not quick. But I put some habits in place prior to my surgery that helped me to heal faster than I would have. But it still was a process. There are still some things that I'm healing from with regards to my surgery. Still healing, still in the healing process, because my body didn't snap back like these other like all these other young people who have the kinds of surgeries that I had. So that was a step, that I had to take in my wellness journey, because we tend to self-sabotage. We don't think that it's going to happen. And then when it happens, we're like, uh-oh. And that's exactly what happened to me. I'm like, uh-oh, I didn't have a budget to buy all new clothes. So let me explain something to y'all. The goodwill became my friend, okay? Became my friend. I called it the GW, okay? Because that's where I went to rebuild my wardrobe, because I didn't anticipate on winning that battle, but I did. And I want you to think about, what are some of the things that you've thought about or that you didn't think that you were going to be able to do, and then all of a sudden you did it, and then it was like, uh-oh, now what? This tends to happen when we're talking about weight loss, because we get to a certain point and then sometimes we don't know what to do afterwards. We've reached the finish line to the goal weight or whatever that comfortable place was, but sometimes we don't know how to manage, how to stay there. And that was what I had to learn. And I said, okay, once I get to this point, when I first started losing the weight, when I lost the 40 pounds, I was using a supplement. And it was something that I was like, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life paying for food that comes in a box. I needed to learn how to eat real food again. I needed to learn what happens when I eat, and what kinds of food are going to cause inflammation, and what kinds of food are going to be good for me, that are going to help me to maintain this significant weight loss that I had, and to and to, enhance the surgeries that were done to remove that excess skin so that it's not growing back again. I had to educate myself beyond what it was that I thought was the finish line. There wasn't a finish line. What I learned is that it's a process. Once we get to a certain point, are we anticipating what happens next? And so, in the beginning of my show, you hear me say that I'm a holistic nutritionist. I took a certification. It took me a year and a half. I had to take an exam, 300 and I think it was 392 questions. Almost had a heart attack. But 392 questions I had to answer. I had to research. There were several books that I had to read and information that I had to learn about blue zones, about different foods, about trans fats, about all kinds of things that showed me what I needed to know about what happens when my body processes food. It was important for me not to just lose the weight, but to learn how to maintain it, what happens when I don't, and there were several moving parts to that. Okay. And I'm going to tell you how that ties into my physical toolbox. Okay. Because one thing that I learned in this wellness journey is that it's not just about the physical, the mental is a part of it. Because as I lost the weight, I had to also, learn to adjust to this new face that I was seeing. Thank goodness that I look exactly like my daddy with hair. I do. Anybody who knows, they're like, your dad is your twin. I'm my dad's twin. I look just like my daddy. Okay. And if I didn't, I wouldn't recognize my face. I have my dad's face. And so that gives me some comfort. But, I had to learn how to exist in this new skin that I was in. Before I had my surgery, I felt a little bit of remorse. I was going to miss that full-figured Kim that I had come to embrace and had come to love so much. And now here it is, she's gone. So for a moment, the night before I had my surgery, I was like, I'm going to miss her because I know her. I know how to dress her. I know how to carry her. And now here it is. I'm going to be in this body that's alien to me, in this size that I've never been in my adult life. And now I've got to make adjustments. That wears on the psyche. And I began to understand that there were people who have surgeries that actually have lap band surgeries or have gastric bypass or any other type of surgery that they have, and why a psychological has to be done in conjunction with that surgery, because it's a mental thing. And even though I lost the weight on my own, I did not have any surgeries or procedures done. The only procedures that I had done were to remove the excess skin because it was actually flapping audibly. Okay. And so I had to have that. And then I have spinal stenosis. So mine were done for quality of life and to, take some of the pressure off of my back and off of my body due to the weight loss. But it's a psychological thing that happens. It attacks all areas of your life. I had to do things differently. And I had to find out how I can respond to those things that were happening around me. I didn't have the tools that I needed at the time. Okay. And that's where when we talk about making major changes, if we don't have tools in our mental, physical, and spiritual toolboxes to reach back into, when we get to a point of adversity, it can be a challenge because you're reaching for something and there's nothing there. And then what happens is you start to react because you're reacting out of fear, you're reacting out of frustration. You're reacting out of the fact that you have no idea what to do. So you lash out or you do something that causes you to fall out of alignment with what you worked so hard to get into alignment. Okay, so it becomes a challenge. So we have to start thinking about toolboxes. And that's something that I started, introducing into my shows, a year ago. Let's talk about mental, physical, and spiritual toolboxes. People that were guests on my show, I would say these are people, that are going to help us to fill this particular toolbox. Some things overlapped. Some things were specific to either a spiritual our mental or our physical toolbox. And that was something that, I started to develop. That's something that I've learned as I'm coming up on these 55 years of life, that there is no one thing that's going to be the catch-all for any situation. We have different tools for different things. We have different tools that are in our car that we need to help us if we have any issues that happen with our car. We have a tire iron, we've got a gas can, we've got spare tires, we've got the things that we need. We can't use those same things to fix the things that are going on in our bathroom. That's why we have a plunger, or we have a wrench, or we have other items that we can use to help us with those things. There are no one set of tools that are going to help with everything that we go through. So sometimes those things have to be filtered into those different toolboxes. So that way, when we need them, we can reach for them. Okay. As I was going through my wellness journey, and there were times when I was feeling challenged, I would go into my spiritual toolbox, because there I had scriptures that would help me as I was going through. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I had a resource. I was able to tap into there. I was able to go into prayer. Okay. I was able to say, Lord, I need help outside of myself. Okay. Then I had those things that were in my physical toolbox. In that physical toolbox, I had things I could reach in there and say, okay, I'm feeling as though I'm missing something. My potassium feels low. What is it that I can reach for there? Oh, you know what? I feel dehydrated. I'm going to go and have a little bit more water today. I'm going to go back and I'm going to look through my journal where I write down the things that I'm eating. Because as I was going through my journey, my wellness journey for 2 years straight, every single day, I wrote down every single thing that I ate. I had a coach, and I had to step on the scale, and I had to write down everything that I ate. So there was accountability, because I had to step on that scale and tell her how much I weighed every day. And I had to tell her what I ate. So that way she had a snapshot of what was going on with my overall fitness and my routines. And I was able to see them too. And it helped out considerably, because I travel when I work, and I could see spikes. I could see when my weight fluctuated. I could see at what times and what seasons. So it gave me a snapshot. Okay. So that was something that was in my physical toolbox. I could go back and say, all right, things are not working. Let me go back and see a time when things were working. What was I eating then? What was I doing then? What did my exercise regime look like then? So these were things that I was able to reach back into. Okay. As far as my mental toolbox, just like I said, when I lost the weight, I did that holistic nutritionist certification, and it opened a world of knowledge of nutrition and food and things of that nature. All of those things. So each one of my toolboxes had something in it that I could reach for if I needed it. All of them have a journal in it and a pen. And that's something that I talk about when I talk about setting up toolboxes. Everything has a journal and a pen, because I can journal and write about scripture and about Bible study and things that I need there. Okay. I can look in my mental toolbox, and I can look in my journal and see some of the thoughts or things that I may have been written and that I may have written down regarding my feelings or something that's been going on. I can also have my gratitude journal in there, so that I'm reminded of the things that I should be grateful for. Again, that can overlap into my spiritual toolbox. Okay. And then, of course, I have my pen and paper in my physical toolbox, again, to journal what I'm eating, to see, changes and things like that. So it's important to be able to document those things. Everybody is not a writer. Everybody does not like to journal or love notebooks and pens as much as I do. Okay. But you find out what works for you. For some people, it's doing audio. Sit there. You have a voice recorder? Do your voice recordings. And then that way you can go back and hear some of the things that you've said. And it's coming directly from you. It's coming from it's coming from within. So you figure out what it is that works for you. And like I said, for me, those toolboxes were essential. That's something that I've learned. That's something that I'm building on. And I'm consistently adding things to the toolbox, because I don't know it all. Okay. But the beauty of my background in education is that I'm a forever learner. As a trainer, I'm always learning and researching. As a doctoral candidate, I was always looking and researching and learning. As I was working towards my becoming a minister, reaching in and studying and drawing in information. All of those things helped me because each one of those things filled one of those toolboxes in some sort of way. Okay. And then it also gave me an opportunity to, to, you know, evolve, to move the needle just a little bit closer to being a better version of myself. But you know what else I also learned? And it was so very, very important is that it's okay for me to change my mind. Hey, darling. Sharonda is here. Hey, girl. Hey, love you, darling. Thanks for joining. Okay. But like I said, the one thing that you want to learn, or one thing that you want to keep in mind is that, you have the right, again, to change your mind as you're going through any aspect of your life. When you learn something different, when something changes, when there is a shift, it's okay for you to say, okay, I believed this was the way it was supposed to be, and then I learned differently. And it's okay for you to change if that's going to help you to grow, if that's going to broaden your base, if that's going to be what helps you to be that better version of yourself. Okay, it's not easy. It's not something that just comes to you. Let me put it this way: there are so many things that we've learned environmentally. We've learned from where we've been. We've learned from our families. We've learned from society, from backgrounds. From the backgrounds that we have. They have all been instrumental parts of how we live and how we make the decisions that we make. It's the biases that are created by our experiences. But sometimes as we go through life and as we go through different situations, or as we come out of an existing environment into a new one, we learn things or we see things through a different lens. And it's important for us to respond to that. We just can't say, well, I'm just going to keep on doing it this way because my Nana said keep doing it this way. But if we find out that there's a different way to do it or a better way to do it, why is it that we can't make that change without feeling some kind of way about it? It's important that we take the things that we're learning and that we apply them where they resonate with us. We have to also remember, in my 55 years of life, the way that I was thinking 15 years ago when I was 40 is different from the way that I think now, because I've learned some things, I've experienced some things, I've been some places, and I've seen some things. And so that's what we have to do. We have to be able to respond to the changes that we see. We have to be open to taking in and absorbing something that may be new. Okay, just like Sharon said, change is necessary. It's necessary for us so that way we don't become stagnant. That's another thing too. You have some people that never leave the area that they were born in. Okay, I was born in Queens, New York. My parents still have the same home that I was raised in. My parents still have the same phone number that we had from the time I was born. Okay, and so there are people when I go back to visit who still live in that same area. Now that's not to say that you can't live in that same area, but you want to at time you want to have the opportunity to explore outside of that space. We have to at times get outside of where we are and experience different things and see what life is like outside of that little box that we sometimes can live in. Just say travel the world. Some people say, she said some people never go to, but they travel the world. You want to travel. you know, and sometimes that travel may take place in your mind. The beauty is that we are in a world of, we are in an age of technology. You may not have to leave your house, but you can take a trip or a journey across the world just by going online. Sometimes you have an opportunity to do that. Sometimes you may not. But what are some other ways that you can experience other things that are going on in your life? How are you looking to build and to grow, or to do as my dad says, broaden your base? You know, we're always looking for ways to redefine ourselves. And that's something that I've been able to do in these last, couple of years. Like I said, with that wellness journey over these last 3 years, it has been a journey, and even with the best intentions, even with things in my toolbox, it doesn't mean that things are always going perfect and that everything is just going to always be a wonderful and spectacular day. That's not what that means. I have the tools so that if things begin to break down, or if something happens like a life event or anything, if anything happens, I have those tools available to me. The reason why we have tools is because even though things can be repaired, they still have the possibility to be broken again. But now we're in a better position, or we're better prepared to deal with those things. And that's the difference. That's something that I've learned. And with that comes giving myself grace. Okay? And that's what I've done. Even though I've done well in my wellness journey and have done well with my weight loss, it doesn't mean that I haven't fallen off at times. Okay? Sugar is an addiction. Okay? And every now and then, you seeing people eating cake and you're just like, I think I want that piece of cake. And you have to control yourself. But now it's like, okay, what tools do I have? Now, when those temptations come, am I going to eat that whole entire cake like I used to? Or am I just going to have a little bite just to satiate? Or am I going to say, oh, well, what's something else that I have that may satisfy in place of having that piece of cake? Or am I just going to say, hey, you know what? I know what that piece of cake is going to do to me later on. I know that my stomach is going to hurt. I know that I'm not going to feel well. So I'm just going to opt not to have it. But you have to get to that place where you're able to do that. And if you fall off, okay, and you will, just be real talk. 55 years has taught me that, yeah, you're going to fall off. And when you do, it's not a matter of beating yourself up. It's like, okay, even if I go and decide to eat that whole piece of cake, tomorrow I may say, you know what? I'm back on the grind again. I'm not going to fall off and stay off. I had a moment of weakness. Now I'm going to jump back on. I'm going to forgive myself for that. Okay. And trust and believe, I licked all 10 of my fingers after that piece of cake and felt no regrets, and just said, but I have in my mind that, okay, I did that. Now I'm getting back on track. Tomorrow is a whole new day. The next hour after I eat that cake is a whole new moment. And so now I'm going to go about doing things to course correct, so to speak. I'm going to go back to doing the things that I know I need to do. Okay. And that's something that I've learned. It's not that you fall off and the whole day is gone. That was just a moment in time for that day. What you do after that is going to determine, your success moving forward. Okay. We all have moments of weakness. We all have things that we do. We're not perfect. And that's what I'm learning from a person who used to be a closet perfectionist, type A. All T's have to be crossed. All I's have to be dotted. That is not always the case. I think it became real for me when I was working on my master's degree, and I was like, oh, I have to have a 4.0. I have to have all A's. And then I realized that as the studies got a little more difficult, I learned that B's get degrees and so do C's. Sometimes people just want to see that you got that diploma, okay? And even though you may have gotten a B or a C, you still got that degree. You still earned that degree. Okay, it didn't have to be. And some people may, depending on the career path that you choose, may want to know what your GPA was. Some may not. They just be like, oh, do you have a master's degree? Oh, okay. Well, you have the job because you meet all the other qualifications. We have to stop being so hard on ourselves and feeling that we have to set this standard And here it is, we're at a stage where they're breaking down our Department of Education and all of these things, and rewriting history and all of these things. So we have to begin to prepare ourselves, by digging, taking deeper dives into things that we're interested in, taking deeper dives into things that we want to know more about. It's important for us to get to a place of acceptance within ourselves, and not so much on what the standard is, because who creates the rubric for the standard? Who is it that determines what's right or wrong in my life, outside of the justice system or the legal system, you know? But we are all individuals. We're all not living the exact same life. We have similar situations that happen, but they're always outliers. There are always different variables to what happens in anybody's particular situation. And how we handle it is based on the type of person that we are, and what our tolerances are, and what our boundaries are. That's going to determine how we're going to deal with the situation. You can be in a relationship with somebody who has a drug addiction, and you may have the personality to support that person through all of that. There may be somebody else who says, no, that's a deal breaker for me. I'm not dealing with that. So you're going, depending on who you are as an individual, and that self-reflection, and those thoughts that you have about yourself, and your triggers and shadow work, and all of those things that come along with who you are as an individual, that's going to determine the path that you're going to take. That's why we're all uniquely and beautifully made. We're different in that way. And that's something, again, that I've learned along the course of my 55 years, that I'm still evolving, that I'm still growing, that I'm still learning, and that I am uniquely me. And that I have to take time to sit with myself and to say, what is something that's a hard no for me? What's something that I'm willing to do? And can I articulate that in a way that doesn't hurt or harm myself or others? And those are the things that I think about. Okay. In these 55 years of life, another thing that I have learned is, what do I want the end result to be of the communications that I have with the people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis? If I have a disagreement with my husband, okay, then I have to ask myself, okay, Kim, what do you want the end result to be? Do you want to go to bed with your back not facing him, with your back to him, or not, going to sleep angry? Or do you want to go to sleep cuddled up with him? Is this something that you can have a conversation about, and agree to disagree, if that's what it comes down to, so that way the night ends on a sweet note, and that we both can have sweet slumber, and still be in love tomorrow. Okay. You have to think about, when you're having disagreements, or if you're having conversations, what is it, and what is it that you want the end result to be? Sometimes I have to ask myself, do I want to win? Is it about me winning this argument? Or is it okay that we just have a difference of opinion, and we're okay to be okay with that? So over these last couple of years, I've been really intentional about that. What is it that I want to be the end result of this altercation that I'm having? And then I start working towards that end. So if I'm looking for it to be love, sometimes it's just like, all right, Kim, let him have it. Okay. How deep is it? Now, like I said, on the flip side of that, there are times when I'm saying, hey, you know what? No, I need to win this one. It's not that, because I'm human. Okay. So that's not always going to be the case. There are going to be some things that I'm going to stand firm on, but I can still communicate it in a way that is not harming him or myself. Let's have a conversation about this. Or, okay, if the conversation is getting too heated, let's just agree to disagree for the moment, and let's see if we need to talk about it. Sometimes it's a matter of, if it's something that's so deep then it may be that we need somebody to come in and mediate. Maybe this is something that we need to address with a counselor. Maybe this is something that we need to do. And that's knowing yourself and knowing the person that you're with too. Knowing what their love language is, knowing what their personality traits are. Because some things you can say, and that's just going to trigger that person. But you knew that already. So why do you exacerbate it? You don't want to make it worse. So we have to sometimes stop and draw back and say, okay, let me think of what I want the end result to be. And that so helps me sleep soundly at night. The ability to be able to see, what I want the end result to be and to work towards that end so that I have peace, so that I can rest, and also being able to say no and know that no is a complete sentence. I use it often, y'all. Okay. No is a complete sentence. There are things that I am willing to do, and there are things that I am not. And Sharonda knows I'm that person who says, oh, it's a hard no. It's not just a regular no, it's a hard no. There are some things I stand firm on because I've set boundaries. And when I say that no, I don't have any guilt or shame behind it. And I sleep soundly because of it. I'm not going to be able to give you the best that I can give you. So the answer is no. That's the long and the short of it. Okay. So that has helped me to be able to be at peace with myself. Speaking from experience, speaking from knowledge, I've gathered the information that I needed. I found out what it is that is being asked of me. And then I determine whether it's something that I can do or that I can't do. And if I say I cannot do it, I walk away with confidence, knowing that I meant what I said. There wasn't any doubt. And if there was doubt, I'll say, well, let me think about it, or let me get back to you. And then I'll take the time to research it and then get back to that person and let them know if it's a yes or a no. And then I stand firm on that. I've learned that, and it has helped me to rest. Some people have said, girl, you 55, where? Okay, not on this face, because I don't let stress eat me up. That doesn't mean that it doesn't from time to time, because again, we're human. We are spiritual beings living a human experience. And so we are going to experience emotion. And that is natural. That is something that's to be expected. But we're not to stay there. And that's the thing. I may get angry. Yes, I'll get angry. I'll express that emotion. That really pissed me off. That made me mad. I was angry about that. Okay. And then I go into my toolbox. What can I use that's going to help me? Do I need to take some deep breaths? Do I need to do a quick meditation? What is going to bring me back to center? And then I reach in, I do that thing, and then I move forward. Because I say to myself, okay, where do I want to be at the end of the night? Do I want to have a migraine headache? Do I want to, have my blood pressure going up? Do I want all of those things? Or do I want to be in a space of peace? And when I tell myself I want to be in that space of peace, I start reaching in those toolboxes for whatever it is that I need that's going to help me find that peace. So that way, when I go to write in my gratitude journal at the end of the night to talk about the things that I'm grateful for, I can say I'm grateful for peace. Or I look forward to that, because now, even though something roused me and it upset me, now when it's time to lay down, because I've created the habit of writing down 3 things that I'm grateful for. Now, when it's time to go and write those things down, I can say, okay, well, what was it that really, I could be grateful for today? Yeah, I had that argument, but guess what? The traffic was great tonight. I had a great dinner. Anything, whatever it is, now I can go back and I can reflect and focus on that. And so that's something that I've learned. I've learned to use these toolboxes that I've created for myself that help to bring me back to center, that help me to respond to the things that are going on around me, again, as opposed to reacting. That's what it's about. It's all about coming to center. It's all about mindfulness. What are the things that you're doing to again, move that needle towards that better version of yourself? For me, like I said, it's been this wellness journey that I continue to be on, and I'm constantly working towards. Okay. It's this 365-day challenge that I've created because I have made wellness a habit. I have created habits that, mentally, physically, and spiritually, that are now a part of my norm. It's something that I don't even have to, to second guess. It's something that I do so often that, if anything changes, I just make a little tweak or an adjustment. Like I said, for work, I travel. I'll be traveling next week. I do my exercise. I wake up and I exercise 5:30 every single morning. That is a habit of mine. I'm not always thrilled about it, but for the most part, I am. It's something that I do. It's something that just comes naturally to me now. But when I travel, I automatically, when I'm packing, just like I pack my clothes for the trip and I check the weather and see what the weather's going to be and pack my clothes, I pack my resistance bands, I pack my weights, no more than 8 pounds. What I do, I carry my weights with me because I work out in my hotel room. Because sometimes I don't know if where I'm going has a weight room. Sometimes I don't want to go and get dressed to go and do my exercise in front of people with my funky body in the morning. I don't want to do that. Okay. So I can exercise, because I have spinal stenosis, I exercise in a chair. So I exercise in the chair in the hotel room. So I take my YouTube with me so that way, it's on my phone or on my laptop. And I go and I do my exercise. I don't say, oh, well, because I'm traveling, I'm not going to exercise today. It's a part of what I do. So I take with me the things I need, just like I take my toothbrush and my deodorant and my lotions and my clothes and my pajamas and my underwear, everything else. I take my weights because that's a part of what I do every day. That's a part of how I prepare for the day. So it's not a thought. It automatically goes in the suitcase just like everything else. And so that's what's important. That's a habit, a healthy habit that I've created. That now there's not a time when I just don't pack like that. That's my normal routine. When I go to pack this evening for my trip next week, that's exactly what I'm going to do. The weights go in there first. So that it's preparing. It's making sure that you have the things that you need, so that way you're not making excuses when I can't do that because I didn't do this. I have the weights. There's no excuse for me not to do it. I have internet access. There's no excuse for me not to do it. I even have a book that has different exercises in it. I've been exercising so long, I can create my own routines without going online. So now I have the things. If for some reason they confiscate my weights or something like that, I'm going to take a water bottle and that's going to be my weight. So there are other ways that I've come up with to make the minor adjustments that I need to make. If I see that my weight is fluctuating and I can't afford a whole wardrobe, I'm not going to say, well, I'm just going to stay in this size. I'm just going to keep these clothes. That's why I said I go to Goodwill. Okay. Because I can go and get a shirt, or I can go and get a pair of pants, or I can go and get what it is that I need. I can go and do those things. Okay. You try to find ways to anticipate what things may be happening and prepare for those. Are you always going to be prepared? No. But that's where you're starting to create those toolboxes, so that way, you're not reaching back for nothing. You have a few things in there to be on your way, and if it's that you have to make a physical toolbox, get a physical toolbox and start filling it with things that you need. Start there. Start with that pen and notebook and name it physical, mental, spiritual. And start writing down some things that you would want to put in each one of those categories, so that you have something to reach back for. That's what's important. That's what I've learned in these 55 years of life. I've learned that life is a process, that there are certain preparations that I can make so that I'm responding and not reacting, that I'm thinking, what is the end result? What is it that I want to see in my mind's eye? What do I want the result to be? And am I working to that end, or am I working against it? And that's where I'm going to make adjustments. Where are some areas in my life where I need to make some changes, and how can I go about making them? And they can be the smallest things that you start with, because we know that sometimes fear will come in. Sometimes procrastination comes in. Okay. Sometimes imposter syndrome comes in. present, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, it comes in. Okay. It doesn't mean that you know we don't extend ourselves grace. We have to be willing to extend ourselves grace as we're going through processes, as we're going through changes. Nothing happens overnight. That's why I said we're making wellness a habit, and that it takes 66 days to create a habit, but then it also takes time to, maintain it. And every now and then you have to change those habits up a little bit just to add a little spice. Still the same thing, but you may do something different. Okay, yeah, I've been drinking this gallon of water for 2 years. Okay, fine, and I'm getting a little, now it's starting to be too much. Yes, it's a good habit to drink water. Now you may say, okay, maybe put a little couple of drops of something in there just to add a little pizzazz to it, you know? Or like I said, habit stacking, when you're talking about a habit that you've created and now you're adding a little bit more to it. Yeah, I meditate for 10 minutes every day. Now you may say, well, you know what? I want to double that time. I want to meditate for 20 minutes. So I'm going to adjust my times, my schedule. I'm going to wake up a little bit earlier because I want to see what happens if I add a little more time to it. The one thing that you want to keep in mind when you talk about habits is that you're doing something that you enjoy doing, because you're not going to create a habit off of something that you don't like doing. So make sure that whatever habit you're creating is something that you enjoy, is something that you see the benefits from. Because as you're creating healthy habits and you're seeing the benefits of them, you're going to want to continue doing them. When I drink my water, and even though I can't drink a gallon now because I travel so much and my bladder says, okay. But every opportunity that I have, when I go to have my lunch or if I go to take a break, I'm having water. Okay. So, I'm going to make sure that I'm bringing that into what it is that I'm doing, that I'm drinking that water, and because I'm drinking that water, I see the benefits. I see that my skin is looking better. My skin is clear. I'm not having as much adult acne coming up on my face, even during particular times of the month. I'm noticing that I'm feeling more hydrated. My skin, the texture of my skin is different. It feels more supple, all kinds of things like that. And when you start to see the benefits of the healthy habits that you're creating, it's going to incite you to want to do it more. When you're working out, I work out with weights, I strength train. When I start to see the definition in my shoulders, in my arms, I'm like, okay, come on, Michelle Obama arms, I see you. Okay, all of that. Okay, you start to see that, and that's what's going to propel you to keep doing it. Okay, it's not going to be that thing that you despise that's going to become a healthy habit. Once you start seeing the benefits of it, you'll continue in it, and then it's going to be a no-brainer for you to do it, because you're seeing the benefits and reaping the benefits of that healthy habit that you've created. Okay, so like I said, those are just a few of the things that I've learned in these 55 years of life. Take the time to give yourself some grace. Take the time to add to your mental, physical, and spiritual toolboxes, and also make sure that you're creating healthy habits so that, again, overall wellness becomes a habit for you. Okay, make sure that you're checking in and tuning in with yourself. Okay, give yourself that little mental, spiritual, and physical tune up. Make sure that you're going to take it, going to your annual doctor's appointments. Find out what's going on with your body. One thing that I do every year, I make sure I get my eye exam. I just had one last week. I make sure that I go and have my teeth cleaning, and I'm taking care of my oral health, because I know that it's important to my digestion that my teeth are properly grinding my food and doing all the things that it needs to do. I'm making sure that if there are any other indicators with my health, I'm making sure that I'm tapping in. Know thyself. That is the biggest thing, especially as you're getting older. Every year that goes by, I need to know when that little quote unquote indicator light comes on, telling me that, okay, wait a minute, my arm is hurting me, or I'm feeling some tension in my chest. Go and see about yourself. Make sure that you're tapping in. When those little indicators are coming on, don't ignore them, especially as you're getting older, because they can progress into something that may beyond, maybe beyond, what you think you can do at home, and it may cause you to take a trip to the hospital. Okay. Make sure that you're tapping into you. Make sure that you're, taking time to do a little scan in the morning of your body before you get out of bed. Is everything working? Are my toes work? Wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, move your arms, move your body, stretch a little bit to make sure that you're okay to take on the challenges that come with each day. Okay. It's important that we tap into us. Okay. I see my friend Leah is there. I love you, sis. And she says, happy and blessed birthday. Thank you so much, my dear. We keep creating those healthy habits. She has been my ride or die since I started this 365-day challenge. We are on day 134, y'all. 134 days. There have been 134 days in this year so far. Okay. I feel like we just said Happy New Year, but here we are. And in this year, and we're looking, to see what we can do again to move the needle just a little bit more towards these healthy habits, towards being the better versions of ourselves. And that's something that I wish for everyone. Okay. So before we wrap things up, I want you again to make sure that you like, follow, share, and subscribe. The website is going across the bottom of the page, as well as the YouTube channel at How Now Podcast 2391. Make sure that you like, follow, share, and subscribe. Okay. Also, remember some of the things that I do. Let's just talk quickly about some of the things that I do, some of the services that I provide. Like I said, I'm a holistic nutritionist. I can help you with coming up with a system that's going to be tailored to you and helping you with meeting some of your nutritional and weight loss goals. Okay. I'm also a keynote speaker. I can come and speak at your next event, Women's Day, church event, school, corporate office. Let me come and share some of my keynote speeches with you all. I'm also a child care trainer, so I can come. Those of you who know people who have child care facilities and are in need of trainers to come out, I'm also available to come out and do that as well. So again, go to www.hownowpodcast.com and check out my page and see some of the services that I'm providing and how I can assist you in your now. Okay, and so with that, I'm going to say peace and blessings to you all. I pray that if you haven't started with the 365-day challenge and you're interested in doing so, it's never too late. You can start today. Today can be your day one. Okay, so tap into that. Again, be sure to like, follow, share, and subscribe. Know that you are loved. Thank you all for sharing my birthday with me. Like I said, it's in 2 more shopping days. You got time? Okay. So make sure that you, again, like, follow, share, and subscribe. And until I see you all the next time, I say peace.